Hello, Global Theater. My name is Jerry Fielka. Today is July 10, 2024. We want to thank Rob Grant and his amazing podcast. I'm probably wrong about everything. Please subscribe. Also, want to thank Donald and Bridget, who are people in Ann Arbor who hosted a concert with my wife many years ago and introduced me to today's guest, Andy Markovits. Is that the right way to say it, Andy?
Perfect, excellent.
And where in the heck you calling in from, Andy?
I'm calling in from my home in Ann Arbor, Michigan, literally a couple of feet away from where we met a couple of years ago in Don's and Bridget's home.
How cool is that? The first question is, what is the best thing for a human being?
The best thing for a human being is happiness.
I like that. What's your favorite form of information? How it comes into you?
Oh wow, I'm bombarded by information. Probably the New York Times.
Okay, that implies reading. I like that. Did you become a reader, one, because your parents told you to, two, they did it as an example, or three, on your own?
Oh, definitely by virtue of two. As an example, I come from a very upper middle class, very educated Jewish family in multilingual Western Romania, and books were just around all the time, and in fact, in a number of languages, Hungarian, German, obvious, even some English when I was young. So definitely, it was just bred into me. It just was natural.
Why do you think humans collect or gather information?
Probably two related reasons. One is to enhance their awareness of their situation. In other words, for knowledge of some sort. Um, I also think probably for protection. But also for growth. I mean, I think humans are wired to explore, to learn, to grow, to so it's actually both, I would say.
I, I love all those awareness, knowledge, protection, growth. But you implied was saying that word hardwired. The next question I'm going to ask, anyways, is this need or want to collect information more innate or more invented?
Oh, Jerry, man, I think it's innate.
Yeah.
I really do think it's innate. Yeah, yeah,
Do, do thoughts create emotions?
absolutely.
Love your certainty. Okay, Andy, fill in the blank. I don't know what I think until
I don't know what I think until I have learned about it. Until I have informed myself about it.
yeah.
Yeah, so that to me, it's a very much of a cognitive process. It's a an intellectual process.
Yeah, McLuhan says, I don't know what I think until I say it. Joan Didion says, I don't know what I think until I write it. But I
Oh,
like you're on this theme. We started with information and learning. I like that. You know, Chomsky says, oh no, the next question, sorry, is can humans think without language?
wow! I mean, that's actually a very interesting Chomskyan question.
Well, I
Basically,
know I wasn't supposed to say
no,
Chomsky
I
yet.
know that. I would have guessed it anyway. Uh, no, I think it's impossible to do that without some form of communication. I'm not sure whether the most sort of basic form of communication qualifies as a language.
Yeah.
But yes, I think you need that, some
Yeah.
form of communication. Yes.
Yeah, dude, I there's so many doing these questions for 40 years, over 1,000 interviews. I want to hear people say a certain thing that's contrary to the what 80% of people 80% of people say, yes, we could think without language. No, I want to hear no. I it's rare that people say no. And I
No,
like
no. Yeah, I agree. I mean, I basically said no, although I'm not sure I would call sort of the most basic form of human interaction. I mean, again, I'm not an anthropologist, so I don't know what how people, 50,000 years ago communicated, but I think clearly it was a form, it was a kind of a proto language,
totally. It was proto language because Chomsky says a language is not just words, it's a culture, a tradition, a unification of community, a whole history that creates what a community is. Andy, what do you do when language doesn't work? When language breaks down, what do you do?
In what context?
That's a, you put in the context you want. Say you're at the store and you're trying to communicate to the clerk and language
Well,
breaks
then
down.
I resort. This is actually very rare for me because I speak a number of languages and I know many more. So it's almost I cannot recall being in any situation where all languages failed me. But occasionally, when they did, it becomes basically sign language.
Yeah.
So I or mimicry. I use my hands. I use my face to convey
Yeah.
emotions, convey what I want, my needs, or
Yeah.
so. Yeah,
But your observations of humans in general, are we more thinking beings or more feeling beings?
oh man, both actually.
Yeah.
Uh, both. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, I would. You can't separate the two.
Yeah. But
And
see, we invented the words thinking and feeling. So we think we can separate them. Again, that's the answer I want is both. But I welcome all answers. And
yeah, no,
I also
I would say both.
Yeah, I also welcome I don't know or I can't answer that.
Yeah, yeah,
But
yeah, sure.
I like Bridget Bardot says, when I make love, I don't think. It's like, how do you shut your brain off from thinking? Like people who meditate, they go, now think about not thinking. So uh, there's a bumper sticker on a car on my street. It says, don't believe everything you think. And I says, well, you could say, don't believe everything you feel.
Yeah, for someone who basically has made his living for 50 years teaching at university and basically being a man of letters, I mean, to me, thinking is everything. So
Yeah.
I cannot think of any situation, including making love, when you don't think.
Yeah.
That's just my gig. I mean, so I would think you have to think of
Yeah.
something, even if you think that you shouldn't think or that you should only emote or whatever, you're still thinking.
Yeah. But when you're listening to a Jerry Garcia guitar solo, are you trying to feel? Or are you putting that in? Oh, he just hit a B note and he slid it into a C note. Are you thinking or are you more feeling?
That's a great question, and actually, I would say it's both.
There you
Uh,
go. See?
I certainly, it's my love for it is all about feeling. It's a it emotes a certain kind of thing that is indescribable and particular to me, and also millions of other deadheads, but you can't describe it. But in fact, very quickly it becomes an intellectual exercise by saying, "Oh wow, he sounds a little bit bluesy here," or he was referencing Buddy Guy, or I don't know, some blues guitarist, or he actually is much more in the country mode. So clearly it very quickly becomes an intellectual process. What I find interesting, though, to me, the big difference between classical music and rock music, or again, in this case, the Grateful Dead or the Beatles or my favorite 60s bands, is that with Mozart, it's also emotion, no question, but it's very quickly turns into cognition. In other words, it's a form of, oh, wow, this is kind of, it's a form of knowing, and kind of bragging about the knowing to others.
Yeah,
Um,
that's
uh,
good bragging.
yeah,
That's good.
whereas with Jerry Garcia and his Soli, it's there's no bragging really. I mean, although of course people do, but it's just basically clearly a wonderful sound that
Yeah,
makes me feel whole and
yeah,
really beautiful. But it's again linked to definitely to some thinking,
yeah.
clearly.
Yeah, it's beautiful what you said because I know great superstar musicians. They go, "Don't think." It's like, yeah, well, you can't erase all that knowledge you have. Jerry can't erase all the bluegrass picking. Like Dylan said it best. He says, "If you play Muddy Waters as many times as I have, you'll write Maggie's Farm too." So
There,
you can't erase all that, but but Jerry, I think Garcia does know and knew how to play kind of egoless. He wasn't going, I want to show off my
yes,
chops.
yes,
He was
yes,
more just in the moment
totally,
exploring.
totally. No, no, no. That's one of the reasons I love him so much.
Yeah,
He was a total musician and an artist, and who really didn't care about being a rock star. He was actually not a rock star. He was
no,
sort of in some ways an anti-rock star with his,
totally.
earth shoes and
Yeah.
basically kind of this pudgy guy. And so one of the things I really relate to him it was in fact his the purity, quote unquote, the purity of his musicianship.
Beautiful. Purity is it. Because when those stupid other, I mean, they're not stupid, but anyways, when the other guys in his band in the 4 hour Dead documentary said 50,000 kids are showing up to a stadium where there's only 20,000 seats. We have to, and they're dying, and the cities are complaining. We have to make a statement that says, don't come to the city unless you have a ticket. And they said, you have to sign this. And Jerry goes, I'm not going to sign that. I started this band to have fun and dance. I'm not going to restrict my audience. And the other guys are like, well, we're practical businessmen. We can't have the cities have so the purity word on Jerry was really good. So here's two questions, Andy, from Turing in the 50s. One, is thinking a function of the soul?
Alan Turing, this is Alan Turing,
These
the
are
great,
two questions from Alan
from Alan
Turing.
Turing,
The
the
first,
great mathematician, the
yes,
Blenchley, yeah, yeah, yeah. Wow. I mean, conventionally, I would say no, it's from the brain, but maybe the brain and the soul are not separate. So
yeah,
and listen, I defer to Alan Turing. I'm a pedestrian guy compared to Alan Turing. So if he
yeah,
thinks it's from the soul, it is from the soul. But I would have not thought that automatically.
yeah. Um, Before I ask you a second, I think we either should raise your audio level or you should lean in because
Okay,
you're
okay.
still a little low. Can you pull the laptop closer or move your
Yes,
chair
yes.
closer?
Let me put it. Yeah, now
As
better.
close as you can, much more closer the better, because it's the sound is a little low, and we could try turning the level up.
I can't come much closer than
Okay,
this.
let's try that, and then we'll.
Okay.
Okay, the second Turing question is, can machines think?
Well, machines can compute, can machines can at least pre-AI. I think all of this has changed, but machines, I would argue, cannot think independently and
Yeah,
cannot think critically and cannot negate uh, what a human could, meaning,
yeah,
um, so I would say no, but
yeah.
again,
Do you more pursue happiness or more pursue meaning?
meaning.
Wow. In your first question, the best thing for a human being was happiness. Because I got that question from Alan Turing. He says, happiness doesn't tend to last, meaning does.
Exactly. I agree. But that's but you see, to me, meaning also then results in happiness.
Yeah.
Um, the two are not, they're not separate.
Yeah. It's like this. Okay.
Yeah.
Does the brain more detect consciousness or create it? Like, is consciousness there bubbling away and we're more so detecting it or more so creating it?
Oh, what question. uh
Your
oh
guess
man.
or your hunch, Andy?
I this one I really have no idea.
Okay,
I'm
that's fine.
Let me pass on this. I just have no idea.
No, that's fine. Okay,
Yeah,
what's
okay.
faster, speed of light or speed of thought?
Speed of thought.
There's no right or wrong answers, but that one you got right. Thank you.
Speed of
Okay,
thought.
yes, I agree. Okay, so Audre Lorde, the poet, said you can't dismantle the master's house using the master's tools. Her colleague Yvonne Rainer said you can if you expose the tools. What new tool do you suggest?
New tool to do what?
Well, that's it. You put in the context you want. So, because I opened some of the questions with cute quotes, doesn't mean you have to apply them. It's basically what tool do you gravitate towards? If you want to add the word new, that's fine. If you want to add to dismantle the master's house, that's fine.
I'm not even sure I want to dismantle the master's house. I mean,
Yeah.
Audrey, I'm not as revolutionary as Audrey Lorde, and I'm not an iconoclast. And um, I think to me, it's case by case. I mean, there's certain things I would like to dismantle the master's house, and others not. So. To me, it's really an issue by issue,
Right.
yeah, case by case thing.
What new toy do you suggest?
New toy. Um, oh my. Uh, New toy. Um, a sort of a an emotive computer,
Oh,
meaning
that is a great one. So we don't have it, but you would like that to come about, an emotive computer.
yes.
Okay, so what do you worry
Basic,
about? Go ahead.
yeah. Basically, I would like that. What was the name? Um, in the movie, was it Her?
Her,
Yeah,
her.
exactly.
Yeah,
Yeah, I basically want Scarlett Johansson to be less cynical, or much more real. Ultimately, I want a Scarlett Johansson to be the partner of whatever the protagonist's name was.
yeah,
Um, uh,
yeah,
you know, Phoenix, Joaquin Phoenix.
yeah.
Phoenix.
Joaquin, yeah.
Yeah,
O-
Joaquin Phoenix. Yes.
Yeah, okay. So what do you worry about when you go to bed at night?
Actually, very pedestrian things. The Yankees left-handed pitching not holding up. Uh, the Yankees, tanking now. The Red Sox being pursuing are in hot pursuit at the moment. Of course, I was in Europe attending the Euro games, and I was worried about various outcomes. And I'm thrilled that just before we got on the air, actually England beat Holland, so England will face Spain in the final. I worry about very kind of pedestrian things, actually.
That's
A
cool.
lot about sports, actually. A
Sports
lot
is
about
fine. It's community, man. Okay,
yes.
McLuhan learned from a poet that artists are the antenna of the race. They're broadcasting and detecting the hidden psychic effects of our inventions. So we might learn how to cope with what we don't like about our inventions. So, Andy, I asked you the question Marshall probed his whole career. Why do we ignore the hidden psychic effects of our inventions, even though the artists are broadcasting them to us?
Do we ignore them?
I got that answer yesterday. That is amazing. Do we? Well, I don't know. You answered a question with a question. Maybe we don't ignore them. Is that what you're implying?
Yeah, I mean, I'm just not. I think it's an open question. I'm not
Yeah,
sure whether we ignore them.
yeah.
I mean, maybe we don't act upon them the way someone would like it for someone would like to have it acted upon, although I'm not quite sure who that would be. But I'm not sure that we don't act. I mean, it's to me it's an open question. I don't
That,
know again.
that's fine. Do artists have moral obligation?
Not more. I think human beings have moral obligations.
Okay. Yeah.
I don't think that just by virtue of a profession or by virtue of a standing. I mean, you clearly your moral obligation is more noticed because you're known, but I don't think that by being an athlete or an artist or whatever, you are compelled to have moral obligations. It's important. It's nice to have them, but I think it's really an issue of humans have to have them, not artists.
Very good. Are you more afraid of old ideas or more afraid of new ideas?
Wow, what a great question. Uh, Both, actually. Very
Wow.
different.
Way to
Very
go.
differently. I'm
Yeah.
very worried about old ideas that might come to fruition yet again.
Yeah.
Um, Hatred, anti-Semitism, um, um, you know, um, misogyny, all kinds of old ideas that we sometimes thought that we conquered and we haven't. So
Yeah.
clearly, I'm worried about old ideas. With new ideas, I'm worried for different reasons. Old ideas, I worry because I actually know what they have wrought.
Yeah.
And new ideas, I have no idea what they might lead to.
Yeah.
So basically, I'm a worrier. I'm worried about old ideas. I'm worried about new ideas in a
Yeah.
different way. It's a different way.
Can you conjure up your earliest memory ever or one of them?
Yes, actually, I can conjure up um, memory when I was a little boy in Romania, and um, basically uh, we had a Soviet officer who was. This is actually all written in my memoir, and I write about this. And the Soviet officer, who was very scary to others, was actually not scary to me, and I really got along with him fine. And above all, I loved his bringing me chocolate, and it was this Russian chocolate called Medved, which is bear, called bear. So I remember this very. It's very. I must have been 2 or 3 years old, and I remember him. I also remember very clearly his perfume, the smell of his perfume,
Wow.
which was actually interesting because Stalin ordered the Red Army to use perfume lest it be decried as being barbarous and sort of peasant like and so on. So actually, the Soviet officers often wore some kind of a cheap perfume, which I actually kind of liked. And I remember, I mean, I just really conjure this up. So I think this is an early memory which I always lasted with me, and
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, here's your book. I encourage people to check it out. The Passport as Home, Comfort and Rootlessness. What a great cover. Really great book. I suggest people seek it out. So is memory more a curse or more a blessing?
Both.
Yeah.
You know, I the older we get, the more we live in our memories, and uh, again, I even though there were rocky things in my life, but on the whole, um, the memories of good things prevail massively and give me a lot of succor and comfort and a
Yep.
lot of love. Um,
Beautiful.
so memory. Then again, you know, memorizing bad things. So, for example, actually, very interesting. I just read. I do a lot of work on sports and sports sociology, and I just read very interestingly that typically the memory or the lasting effect of losses is much more powerful than the lasting effect of victories.
Yeah.
Meaning the joy of winning is less powerful than the pain of losing. And of course, this is very much the case for people who are really the hardcore fans. In other words, those that and so um a couple of things that were traumatic to me, stay. So, and
Yeah.
those are, so I would say both again.
Yeah. You covered this one in your book, but I want you to just articulate it a little briefly. Tell me a person within your immediate family that had an impact on you, kind of like a role model, and what was that impact?
Oh, I think it's very clear. I mean, the book is really an homage to my father and actually to
What's
the
the
United
main thing you got from your dad?
generosity.
Oh my God, what a great trait. Now, outside your immediate family, same question. One kind of early role model, and what'd you get from them?
Or do you mean when I was a kid or later?
Yeah, yeah, or you can do later, but I mean, one
No, because
person in your upbringing that had
yeah.
an impact on you, and what was that impact?
Well, later as an undergraduate at Columbia, one particular professor, Ira Katznelson, just influenced my choice of becoming an academic. So he had a major influence on me. And I always kind of strove to be Ira Katznelson, and I didn't quite make it, but I did okay. And
Yeah,
then the same actually at Harvard with Carl Deutsch, and I write a lot
yeah,
about him. And Carl Deutsch was a very, very, very influential person for me, and above all, not only by virtue of his genius and intellectual brilliance, but again by virtue of his generosity. I think
amazing.
there's only one trait of mine that I'm actually quite sort of proud of is that I think this sounds like bragging, so I shouldn't say it, but I mean I think I've been a very generous guy,
Yeah,
and to my students and to people, and that is all from my father.
it's
Um,
beautiful.
yeah, that
That's
that
beautiful.
yeah.
No, that's good. Now, you were raised Jewish. Do you pray?
Yes.
If God exists, what would you like God to say to you after you die?
Oh, Jerry, I love this. This is insane. Uh, I mean, My God, who could prepare for this? What would I like to have God say? Oh, holy. Uh, Welcome to this wonderful realm ruled and frolicked by golden retrievers. That to me
Oh
would
my God, that is so beautiful. It's
that
so
to me that to me
yeah,
is heaven. To me, that I
yeah,
want to see I want to reconnect with my 7 golden retrievers who have enriched my life, and I want to see them in the afterlife. What I'm
yeah.
worried about, and this is so I always talk to this to my wife about this, is what if we don't know, what if I meet Hitler? I mean, I don't who's to know? Who's to know who's up there? I mean,
Ah, that's
I mean,
funny.
so I'm actually worried. Maybe it will not be my golden retrievers. Maybe it will be Hitler, and
Well,
that would not be good.
Andy,
So,
there's a joke. There's a joke where the guy gets to heaven or hell, it doesn't matter. And you're standing there at the door of heaven in St. Pete, and you can peek in and you go, "Oh, you have my 7 golden retrievers." And St. Pete goes, "That's all we have." So it's the
uh,
same thing. You get to
yes,
hell and you look in, you go, "You have Hitler in hell," and then and the devil goes, "That's all we have."
yes. We don't know whether Hitler is in hell. I mean, we
Yeah.
don't know that. Anyway, yeah, I'm not sure I answered your question, but
No, you did. You answered it. Now it's perfect lead in. Do evil people exist, or does evil use people as a vehicle?
no, evil people exist.
Okay, so here's really the hidden question. How do you advise someone to deal with an enemy? And I'll set it up. Alan Watts says, if you acknowledge your enemy, you empower them. Coppola stole from the mob and the samurai. Keep your friends close and your enemies closer. JFK said, forgive your enemy, but don't forget their name. And Fellini says, I need an enemy. So it's a lot of thoughts. The basic question is, how do you advise someone to deal with an enemy? But first, how would you respond to Alan Watts? If you acknowledge your enemy, you empower them.
I I somehow disagree because, or I think it's the enemy already is empowered. I don't think it needs your
Yeah.
acknowledgement. Your acknowledgement, all it does is that it kind of guards you and makes you ready, or kind of makes you choose your course of action of some sort.
Right. And
Um,
how would you advise? Like one of your students come to you and go, Andy, I'm having trouble. I'm being bullied. There's an enemy in my life. What should I do? How would you advise them?
okay, that's context. Um, I would advise them, wisely, in the sense of, that they not get hurt, but also that they don't lie down. Meaning, in this case, you're bullied. I would say you have to harness the authorities. You have to harness people you have to create allies. I think that's important. You know, you
Whoa, that's a good one.
you
Create
definitely.
allies.
Absolutely. I mean, I'm a
Wow.
big, you have to harness your allies who exist. You have to harness them and make sure that they're on your side, and that you reason with them and tell them why, in fact, this enemy is not only threatening to you, but also to others. And so you basically create a world of alliances, which, by the way, I very much favor also in my work in international relations and comparative politics. I mean, I'm very much of an alliance guy. You don't go it alone. You basically, you alliances are crucial. So I would say the same thing with the bully, or the guy who's being bullied. I'm sorry.
No, Andy, I appreciate how concise you are. I appreciate you're articulate. But here's the follow up. Nassim Taleb. Games were created to give non heroes the illusion of winning. In real life, we don't know who wins or loses, but we can tell who a hero is. My friend said villains don't think they're bad, they want control. Heroes want freedom. Gregory Bateson, the anthropologist, says when the criminal gets caught, does he go, whoa, my criminal skills weren't up to snuff that day? Or does he go, I did something morally and socially wrong? So again, it's a lot of prompts. You can go wherever you want, but
Oh, man.
the
Jerry,
basic question is, does punishment work?
I think this is also a kind of in certain cases it does, in others it doesn't. I mean, I think
Yeah,
you can't generalize. I think it's really sort of from case to case. It's an empirical question, not a theoretical one.
yeah.
But you bombarded me. Brilliant. What was the thing that about? I love that thing about the game. Brilliant. I
Okay, that's Nassim Taleb. Let me read it again and you respond. Games were created because this is more like your love of sports. That's game.
Yes, yes.
Games were created to give non-heroes the illusion of winning. In real life, we don't know who wins or loses, but we can tell who a hero is.
This is I have to write. This is brilliant because in some ways there's that great sort of dialogue in this wonderful movie White Men Can't Jump,
Yes, it's
where
shot in
Rose
Venice, California.
exactly, and Rosie Perez tells I think what's his name Harrelson. Woody
Woody.
Harrelson, when he says, she asks him, why do you do this? Why do you bet? And why? Because because there are in these games very clear. There are winners and losers, and she has this wonderful repartee where she basically said, in real life there are no winners and losers. Sometimes you win and sometimes you lose, and sometimes when you win you actually lost, and when you lose, it's much more. I think it's a brilliant statement, and I think what you just said is also true. That games create a clear. That's why we love sports. In sports, there's a clear-cut winner. At the moment, England beat the Netherlands 2-1. There is no. I mean, yes, you could always say the ref did this, but it's very clear.
Yeah,
Um, it's rare in life that there's such a clarity.
yeah,
And so clearly, games allow us a clarity, which in terms of winners allows us to create heroes. That's actually spot on correct.
yeah.
Um, um, yeah, yeah.
Well, you really anticipated the next question. You have ESP, amazing, really well put. So James Joyce was the first projectionist in Dublin 100 years ago. He basically checked out. He said, "This is stupid. Why should I go inside a building and see a movie of a tree when I can go outside and see a real tree?" Years later, Faulkner says sometimes the best fiction is more true than journalism. Why do we have to recreate things in order to get them? Why do we have to go to a theatrical play of people acting out life? Why don't we just live life?
Well, we don't have to. I mean, it's the artists who create that.
Yeah.
So we don't. Most people don't go to the theater, or most people don't. I don't know. Watch Shakespeare.
But it's
That's
also in sports. I mean, why do you have to act out you just apply it to sports? Why do you have to act out the drama of a sporting event, having a winner or loser? Why don't they just play and they don't have to have a winner or a loser?
oh
There
they by the way they didn't when modern sports was invented by British gentlemen they didn't win or I mean
Oh,
winning was
that's
complete.
great.
No,
But
it's
you
actually
but you know what I'm asking is
no I know
why
what
do we
you're asking.
I'm
I know
sort of
what
asking why do we have to have art? Why do we have to have recreation of the drama
we
of
don't
of yeah,
no we don't have to have it. It's
I
not
know, but why did we invent it?
because the human mind is very creative and inventive and it doesn't want to just have the basics. We're not just meat and potatoes kind of guy. Okay, but we want a certain form of beauty or a second originality or why why did Mozart write what he wrote, or why do so creativity is, we don't have to have creativity, but it creates what makes life really enjoyable and really worth
Yeah.
living. But back to your point about, I mean, you don't have to. Originally, sports were much more in terms of basically participation. I
Yeah.
mean, what, and it's, in fact, with the British elite, actually winning was gauche. I mean, winning was left for upstarts but not gentlemen. Gentlemen didn't have to win. Gentlemen just played, and
Well,
winning
what
was
tipped
actually
it over? What changed it?
change when it became actually part of the masses. When workers started playing in the 1880s, 1890s, they started to get paid for it, and winning became important because winning is a form of distinction. And it was become also materialized, and it was in fact a paying, and so on and so forth. So winning, it became, with the old Vince Lombardi saying, winning is not everything, it's the only thing. And uh, and so it becomes this metaphor, but it need not have been that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's really good. Really taught me a good lesson. It's in fact, I was raised, in sports, Willie Mays and Cassie Russell from University of Michigan. But then, I was like, well, I don't need this competition thing. I just like the activity and the exercise.
Yes, I mean, good for you. I just can't let go. I mean, to me, it's very important to,
Right.
have
That's
my,
good.
yeah.
So let's go into your callings. So I mean, basically, what's your first calling and where's the tipping point? You go to high school and college, you go, I'm going to study politics or I'm going to study German history. What's your first, cuz you do several things, but I mean
Yeah,
basically you're a teacher of politics, German studies and social democracy. I mean that's your main thing.
yeah. I mean, then of course later it becomes sports
Yeah.
and even dog rescue. Um,
But then it becomes educator. But before you become an
yeah.
educator, where's your tipping point to become what? In
Okay,
high school or
the
college?
tipping point. No. It's definitely college. High
Yeah.
school in Vienna was a rotten place, and I hated it. And it's
Yeah.
all Columbia University and some teachers at Columbia University, the aforementioned Ira Katznelson, for
Yeah.
example. And also the curriculum was amazing. And so Columbia opens up a whole vista for me, and I realized that I really love reading and reading Karl Marx and Emil
Yeah.
Durkheim and Max Weber and Adam Smith and all these great minds just was fun.
Yeah.
And I, typically, occasionally, I would prefer reading Adam Smith on a Saturday night than going out on a date. I mean, it's just my, my preference. And
Well,
so that
let's go to your wife for a second. How many years you been married?
Well, we've been married officially since 97, so
I mean, how
20
many years you been together? Yeah.
since 91. But
And how many
actually, we met as teenagers in 68, but then broke up and didn't see each other for 23 and a half years
yeah.
when we reconnected.
But how do you explain the longevity?
The longevity is that obviously I love looking at her. I love seeing her smile. I love her humor. I love the laughter. And we're compatible.
Yeah.
There's no, I mean, there are certain, things occasionally, but on the whole, we just really have this deep understanding and appreciation. And I'm lucky. That's all.
Yeah. I like what you said because I was trying to get at, does she tolerate you reading on a Saturday night or does she want to go out?
No, 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 no. Well, now, of course, we're old people, so she very much tolerates me reading on Saturday night. Occasionally, she would prefer, and we do actually. I make it a point to see a movie or we
Yeah,
watch things. So clearly, I make concessions here, but
yeah,
which is
that's
concessions
good.
that are very easy. But
Okay,
anyway,
that
my tipping point was really
yeah.
at the age of 18, 19, 20 at Columbia when it
Yeah,
becomes clear to me that I really ultimately want to become a professor.
that's where you love reading, it's fun, and you wanna pursue being an educator.
Yes, yes.
Yeah. Okay, let's go with that. You have many other things, we'll try to dive into those too. A screenwriting teacher, actually at the University of Michigan, told me great film, great art is when you can clearly see the intention of the maker. Stanley Kubrick says the opposite. Great art is when you can clearly not see the intention of the maker. What role does intention play in your creative process of being an educator?
Well, it's central, absolutely central. But it's sort of um, it's bifurcated because my intention of teach and as a teacher, which by the way I think will be the biggest loss for me of now just having retired, of not having students.
Yeah,
And I really miss there the intention is to make them not only learn the stuff that I'm teaching, but above all for them to really think on their own, and
yeah,
to really for them to learn how to write, to learn how to argue, to learn how to make a coherent argument, and to basically be, you know, good thinking people,
yeah,
uh, which is very different from my or very different from my task as a writer, or basically as a writer of articles and books. There, the intention is to um, clarify a topic, or to
yeah,
clarify usually a question. You know, why is soccer not as popular in the United States than everywhere else? Or this became a major book and a big research project. Why did German social democracy react to this differently from Swedish social democracy? So there, it's really solving a question or a puzzle, and do it as best I can. Both in terms of the theoretical framework, but also getting good, material for it, empirical material, looking at the other scholarship, and basically being an academic, which is a certain tool. It's a certain language. Being an academic is a certain language which is accepted in the profession and demanded in the profession, which basically qualifies you as a good one or a less good one. And so those are really different forms of intention.
I got you. That you really brought you did a better job than me asking the question there. You just morphed right into the second part beautifully. Thank you, Annie. But it's also what Duchamp said, there's no art without an audience. How much are you thinking of your reader when you're writing your essay? And how much were you thinking of your reader when you were writing your book?
Oh, you always think of the reader, but it's a very different. Typically, up to recently, or most of my work on my academic work, my audience is my fellow academics. So when I write an article, an academic article, I basically think of what my peers and people working, basically, as my wife Kiki would say, basically 5 people in the world who care about this. Okay. uh, but clearly those are my audience, and I focus on them completely. With writing for newspapers or writing for a broader audience, there it is actually a larger population. But even there, it's actually confined because I'm thinking of basically your New York Times reader, or I'm thinking of people who are, I hate the word, but let's call them intellectuals, or
Yeah.
in a broad thinker. With the memoir, it was actually the latter. It was clearly not my academic audience. I never thought of writing this for basically my colleagues or at universities, or because it actually was a kind of writing that I never done before and never will do again.
Right. So it was a diversion, but it was still this is what we talked about, tools in what do you gravitate towards. Basically, McLuhan says everything we invent has extends some humanness, like the knife and fork extend your teeth, the shutter in a camera extends your eyelid, and maybe even like non-tangible religion or philosophy extends consciousness. What does the writing utensil extend for you? What humanness, whether it's a pen or a keyboard, what humanness does it extend?
Well, it extends my it extends my the my communication, or my desire to enlighten or tell people about German social democracy or the German
Yeah,
Greens, and to make it as clear and as scholarly as I possibly can for the 5 people to whom this is important, and to make
yeah,
it maybe less scholarly or less jargony and more conventionally argued for people in the broader. But basically it's a way to communicate to them a form of knowledge that I in this case might have that they may not. So
yeah.
it is a form of information.
And it is you being generous because you invest a lot of time, even though you're getting paid, you're investing time to what you say, enlighten, communicate this desire to enlighten. So I appreciate that. Michael Apted is a great filmmaker. And 40 years ago, I asked him, why do rock video editors feel so obliged to edit fast? People don't know Abel Gance invented rapid montage in 1922 in France, but it really flourished in the 80s with MTV, to the point where Marty Scorsese said, I cut my films faster because of MTV. Well, Michael Apted said, because we've learned to take in information faster. So I ask you this with a bias. Can we literally learn to take in information faster, or are we just brainwashed to believe we can?
I'm not a neurologist, so I have no idea, but I think we're forced um, uh, take information faster because we're bombarded by it all the time. Now, I've no idea how long lasting it is, and whether in fact it's what how how we screen what we take in. I have no idea. I
Can
just don't know.
can humans literally multitask?
Yes, women can multitask.
Yeah.
Yeah, brilliant, amazing. Actually, I mean, yes, they can.
I get that answer.
Yeah, I mean, more than men.
Yeah,
Uh, yeah, I'm sure to up to a point they can multitask. Yes.
yeah. Your hunch or your guess, what was the motive of the cave artist?
I don't think he had a motive.
Wow, that's good.
I I mean, other than just it occurred to him.
Yeah.
He created. I don't think it was a form of communication. I don't think it was a form of aggrandizement. I don't think he did it because he, was rewarded for it in some ways, or he got the girl or whatever it is. I think the first he just did it because it's human creativity. He
Love
just
it.
felt like doing that.
Love it, Andy. McLuhan's line applies. The Balinese have no word for art. They do everything as well as they can.
There you go. There you go.
Okay, Andy, what's more important, conviction or compromise? I'm glad you're laughing. That's the whole point, is to have fun.
Brilliant, brilliant. I would have a week for each one of these things that you
Yeah, but
throw
just
my
off the
way.
top of your head.
Yeah, yeah. It depends on the situation. I
I knew
mean,
you were going to say that.
I mean,
Okay, that's
I don't.
fine.
I mean, conviction is crucial. You
Yeah.
have to have conviction, otherwise you're an empty. You're not. You're an empty sort of. You have no core. You have no. You have you're not a deep human being in some ways. Um, you're completely facile and completely sort of uh, show. I mean, but on the other hand, you need compromise,
There you
uh,
go.
because if it's only conviction, that could end up badly.
Well put. A poet said that poetry is outing your inner dialogue. What language is your inner dialogue in? Now,
Oh, interesting.
I'm not talking more metaphorically too. It's more like what form is your inner consciousness in? Because your language, you have many languages in your head, and you can speak and read them. I'm talking a little more metaphorically. What form is that in your dialogue inside your head?
Say, but tell me again what the
What
original speech.
it's outing your inner dialogue. What language is your inner dialogue in?
Ah, okay. Um, Let me actually answer the more banal one because it's easier. It's very interesting. It's almost all in English, but not everything. So
Yeah,
clearly, for example, when I think about my father, it's only in Hungarian because I
there
spoke
you go.
Hungarian to him.
Yeah.
And when I think about Kiki, my wife, it's actually almost all in Viennese German because that's how we converse
Wow, isn't that heavy? Yeah.
clearly. And when I actually think of an earlier friend whom I know from childhood on Romania, it's actually even in Romanian. Uh, but that's not what you were
But
looking
that's
for.
literal. Let's go with that. That's fine because this is this is a follow-up. You know, George Manupelli right there in Ann Arbor started the film festival over 6 decades ago. His mantra is ignore yourself. Jonas Mekas says there is no self-expression. And Cecil Taylor says, I'm just a vehicle and this stuff just comes through me. Is art making, music making more self expression or more your vehicle for whatever technologies, environments, and cultures are dominant?
Um, I would argue heavily that it's not a vehicle. Back to the caveman, I think to
Yeah,
the it's a form of innate creativity.
yeah,
And I mean, clearly, there is a bit of a vehicle because you don't live in a bubble. So clearly,
yeah,
you harness existing languages that
yeah.
but the novelty, the newness, is all an innate creativity that is you and distinct to you.
Can art making be egoless?
Since I'm not an artist, I don't know, but No, I think nothing can be egoless. I mean,
Is go ahead.
no, or let's put it this way: the 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 creation of the art, I think, can be egoless. It's really a form of expression,
Yeah,
but clearly thereafter there is some egoness,
yeah,
meaning if everybody thinks that what you just produced is horrible or worthless, I would assume that your ego is a bit hurt, and as opposed to when people think that you are, this was brilliant. So
yeah.
clearly, ego matters, but I don't think it is not in the creation, but in the reception.
I love that because Rodney Bingenheimer, the mayor of Sunset Strip, once he said the Grateful Dead killed rock and roll. If Jerry heard that, he'd probably go, "Yeah, we probably didn't need killing, and I know we were too high half the time when we played shitty concerts." But he knew. I mean, of all people, I'd say Garcia's playing egoless. He's just up there playing, and he's
Yes,
not like we said. But who knows? Anyways, is perception reality?
up to a point, yes.
Very good.
Yeah, up to a point it is. I mean, what you perceive, it becomes your reality,
Yeah.
which is
Wh-
subjective. But yes, yes.
Why is it so difficult for humans to consider the possibility that life may be pointless?
Oh my God. Because it leads to nihilism. It leads
That's
to
it. You got that. Okay. Lewis Carroll said, I believe as many as 6 impossible things before breakfast. Have you believed in any impossible things lately?
yes, sadly, very sadly, I think that peace in the Middle East between the Israelis and the Palestinians will be is unrealistic in my lifetime,
Yeah.
and I'm very sad about that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Tell me one major element of your creativeness, what Andy is, that stayed the same, and one major element that's changed
stay the same from when.
from the years you've been doing what you've been devoted to, so many things, one major thing that's rooted in the middle of it all that stayed the same, and one major thing that's changed.
The major thing that stayed the same was that I love to question things, and that has driven my creativity. I always my graduate doctoral students often call me Andy. What's your question, Markovits?
Oh, that is great. I want that. Okay,
Okay,
what's stayed the same? What's changed? One major element that's changed.
patience. I used to be, sadly, I used to be more patient earlier, and I'm becoming less patient now, which
Yeah,
means, and I think it has something to do with clearly, the horizon of my life is
yeah,
shortening. So I've become much less patient with myself, but also with my surrounding. And this is often not good. I mean, you're hasting things. It's
yeah.
just, yeah. So the patient thing has really changed.
My mom has the great line, God give me patience and give it to me now. Okay,
That's good.
can you forget to die?
Can I forget to die?
That's the question. Now you don't you can take it literally or metaphorically. Can you
No, no,
forget?
no, no. I think I'm obsessed with dying, so
Yeah.
I can't forget to die.
Yeah.
I'm
Okay.
I'm terrified of dying.
Yeah. Okay, Andy, this is about the word archive. The two questions is archiving more innate or more invented? And you have plans for your own archive. But let me set it up because it covers some of what we just talked about. The word archive etymologically comes from 1400s, to keep safe, free from harm. 200 years later, it's what we know an archive is: records preserved as evidence. But Baudelaire, the poet, said, if you want to make a statement long, deep, and rich, it will age very fast. If you try to only own the day you're talking, it will last forever. Isn't the point of life to live in the moment? That's, be here now. Ram Dass. Wyndham Lewis said, artists live in the present and write a detailed history of the future. Is this need or when, the Egyptians saved stuff in their coffin? Is this need or want to save all this stuff more innate or more invented?
I almost want to say it's immaterial which one it is because it's just so powerful. And especially you're talking to a guy who my Kiki just literally ordered a dumpster to appear here next week, and because we will really empty a lot of my crap which I've accumulated for the last 40 years. Most of these things of course are old journals which are all now online, and it's just going to be gone. And I'm in a tizzy. I mean, it's my American Political Science Review of 1965. I don't care whether it's online. Of course, I know that. But so my point is that I'm a, you know, um, I hoard. I just
No,
collect.
you're an
And to me,
archivist. You're not a hoarder. That's archive.
exactly.
That's but did you ever approach the college, say this is important
No,
archives?
yeah, actually, very funny. Yes, I donated about 5,000 books, which, of course, Michigan won't take because they're very pedestrian, normal American books. I donated to a new German university that gave me an honorary doctorate. And later, about 6 or 7 years later, I gave them this because it's a new university and they can use it for their undergraduates. And they were very, very appreciative. Uh, but this stuff that Kiki wants me to throw out, she's totally spot on correct. It's complete crap. But
Yeah.
yet, my point is that so the archivist in me finds this traumatic.
Yeah.
Uh, is this something? It's a form of afterlife. We really believe. I mean, I'm convinced that that's one of the reasons. One of the reasons why I write. I really think that I'm hoping that 150 years from now, some class will read my articles on, German social democracy. Whoa, this was really interesting. Or so to me, writing or the book or is ultimately a form of eternity. The
Everything
word.
ends. Yeah, there's a line. Everything. I think it's Mallarmé. Everything ends up in a book. I dumpster dive Emerson's prayer book. It's 100 years old. It's mint. I don't need any player to play it. If I dumpster dive a chip or a hard drive, they won't have the machine to play it. But books, you can read them. I mean, I found Aristotle's Poetics last week, mint. It's over 100 years old and it's in mint condition and it's readable. So I
Yeah.
agree. Yeah, it's a heavy thing, archiving. We're doing a whole project, so I appreciate it's a form of afterlife. That's a way we're reincarnation. Like Krasner says, I only believe in reincarnation in one of my past lives.
Exactly. Exactly.
So Andy, Moshe Feldenkrais works with healing and movement. He says
Yes,
it's
yes.
literally possible to identify a weakness and incorporate it to become a strength, rather than we're normally taught to overcome a weakness. Tell me a weakness you turned into a strength.
A weakness that I turned into strength. Um, um, Insecurity, and which was very high, and which I kind of conquered uh, by being a lot by generosity, really, uh, by virtue, by being generous, and not, and this actually, and competitiveness was also bad. So
Yeah.
competitiveness was also a form of insecurity, which actually I kind of overcame with a form of generosity, and giving me a sense of comfort that, what I'm doing is actually done good, and it's great, and I'm proud of it. And even though some people may be doing better things, but that's okay. It's but what I'm doing is good.
But you've stressed this generosity thing, and I really appreciate it, because I think that's why all humans are on earth, is to make the world a better place. It's evident. Come on, that's what we want to do. And then we want to find this commonality and sharing with other humans. But do you think the generosity that you learned from your dad was somewhat in his DNA? It's really basically the nature nurture thing, which you already says it's immaterial. Is it innate or invented? It's immaterial. But just your hunch, did your dad get generosity from his parents in their DNA, or is it something that he learned to pass on to you?
Okay, great question. I would answer that it can't be, because we have some great empirical examples of studying this. His My uncle was actually not generous. So clearly, I never met my grandparents. They all died in the Holocaust. So I don't know. I don't know whether his parents were, he never talked about them. So I don't know whether they were generous, but clearly he was, and his older uncle, my older brother, was not. Now, this may have been caused by his older brother having encountered a much more tragic and horrible life that my father ultimately did not. Meaning, you go through Auschwitz and you lose four of your sons, you become bitter,
Yeah.
and you're not a generous guy. And so,
Yeah.
but in my lifetime, my uncle was not generous. My father, who had a rough time during World War II but was not deported, um, could maybe had the luxury of being generous. So, but my point is that ultimately, I don't know whether this was innate or whether it was sort of,
Yeah.
again, with nature nurture. I have no idea.
Yeah. But it's also reminds me of, I asked this kid I met when he was 10, he was being raised a Buddhist. And then at 14, I says, "So what have you learned being raised a Buddhist?" And he says, "Not to hate."
Oh,
And it's
great.
like, that's an amazing thing, because is it hardwired? I'm writing an essay, "Can art stop war?" And people are like, "Yeah, right." It's like everybody believes we're hardwired to fight. That's pretty much a given. And it's like, nope, if you study Maria Gimbutas and the anthropologist and the matristic societies, that we had societies where there was no fighting. And so, I mean, you've covered this a little, just talking about your wife. What's the most significant difference between men and women? But my question is, what caused matriarchy?
Has it actually succeeded on a macro level in any?
Well, we know that there were kind of matristic.
Yeah, they were, but
But what caused it is the question. If
well,
there
let me
were,
ask you the other way. Why did it completely disappear? I mean,
hello, that's you're answering a question with a question, because
well, because
yeah,
because I don't
no, it's
know. I
good.
don't. I don't.
It's a good question, because when I asked Eric McLuhan what caused matriarchy, he says men. And then I asked Peter Sellers, the great theater director, I says, what caused matriarchy? And he said, a mother holding its baby. It's biology that women give birth. So
Yes,
that's so we don't know, but it is an abstract question in a lot of ways. People don't want to know what caused, it's a stupid question when I say, what's the most significant difference between men and women, physical aside? And the answer I love is nothing. Men and women are the same, but we know there's cultural things that maybe, you know, it really goes to this, Andy. There's a line that goes, you create what you resist. Bob Goldthwait, the comedian, morphed it as to, you are what you hate. James Joyce said, it's a curious thing how your mind is super saturated with the religion in which you say you disbelieve. And Louis Buñuel nailed it. He said, thank God I'm an atheist. So the basic thing is, how do you respond to this line, you create what you resist? I'm not saying you, Andy, but one creates what one resists. Is there any thoughts you have on that line?
sure. I mean, you do both. I mean, you create what you resist, but you also create what you appreciate or what
Yeah,
you. I mean, it's a dialectical relationship.
yeah,
That in fact in the resistance you create. There are forms of acceptance, or whatever the opposite of resistance is,
yeah.
compliance, or preference or whatever, which also matters. So I don't think you. I think the tension is almost. It's almost, it's innate. I actually, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, no, it's good. In the tension, McLuhan talks about it well. He says it's the resonating interval. It's the dialectic, that
Yeah, yeah,
resonating.
it's dialectic. I mean, to me,
Yeah.
it's very much so. Yeah, absolutely.
Fill in the blank. Anger can be a productive emotion when
Directed at your enemy.
these are 5 Alan Watts questions just off the top of your head in a couple words. 1, who started it all? Good laugh, Andy.
Oh man, Jerry, you're. This is insane. I mean, I love it. Who started it all? Let me be provocative. God.
Are we going to make it?
Yes.
Where do we put it?
In our hearts.
Dude, that is the most favorite answer I ever get. And I'm always hoping, because I don't know when I got it a few years ago, but I love that answer. People just don't get it. Where do we put it? In our hearts. That's evident. Thank you, Andy. Okay, 4. Who's cleaning it up?
All of us.
5. Is it serious?
Up to a point.
So I asked my friend who wrote comedy with Robin Williams, can satire be destructive? He said,
Yes.
that's the job of satire. But if
Exactly.
but if me and you do a cartoon in a certain country and they kill us, some people think dying is destructive. So Swift compared satire to a mirror in which people could see every face but their own. What's the function of satire?
Well, the function of satire is to expose,
Yeah,
and to expose whatever the satirist wants exposed.
yeah,
So if the audience, or in this case, whatever, I agree with this being exposed, I love the satirist. If
yeah,
I do not agree with it, I hate him. But satire is a form of exposition and exposure, and it also is. I see it also sort of as a voice of the weak, or the voice of the powerless, or who, and
yeah,
to harness or to attack power in some ways.
yeah.
That's how I see satire.
Very good, Andy. What's the function of laughter?
To make us feel good.
That's Gurdjieff said the function of laughter is the reconciliation. No, laughter is the reconciliation of yes and no. So McLuhan loved to quote Steve Allen: "Behind every joke, there's a grievance." And I think
Yes,
you agree.
totally,
Yeah,
totally. That's
yeah,
brilliant.
yeah.
Behind every joke, there's a grievance, no question.
Yeah,
And it's said with laughter.
that's it. How do you find peace of mind?
Listening to good music.
Nice. If you were walking down the street today and you met yourself as a 12-year-old, what would you say to your 12-year-old self?
Be more patient than I was. Um, um, the rest, actually, I would confirm of what I did. I mean, be generous, love your friends.
Yeah,
Um, Basically, I would sort of extol my life, actually, and
beautiful.
I would tell him, rock on. You'll be fine. You will actually have a very good life. If you just follow in my footsteps and do what I did.
Got a few more minutes, Andy. This has been truly enlightening. Utah Phillips said, "Anarchy is making rules for yourself and not other people. Who's entitled to make the rules?"
If the rules are arrived at consensually, and if the rules are arrived at democratically and not by imposition or fiat or violence, no less, the rules are very important guidance of behavior. I mean, and
Yeah,
of all and of happiness. You need
yeah.
rules. Rules are our guiding principles. It's our language. We have to understand what we're doing. And so as long as these rules are negotiated, are updated, are an outcome of enlightenment, are an outcome of consent and enlightenment and humaneness, the rules are good. They're very important.
What's the difference between rights and responsibilities?
They're actually, to me, they're actually in some ways one and the same.
Yeah,
Your rights are not cost free. Your rights of anything are a form. They also exact a certain they exact a certain necessity or a certain there's something stringent about them, and so I would argue all rights coincide with some responsibility, because if they don't, it back to anarchy. It becomes in some ways a form of imposition on someone else.
Yeah.
So I think responsibilities are important.
If a statue was built in your honor, where would you want it displayed and what would it be made of?
A statue in my honor. Either in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame or the Baseball Hall of Fame.
Oh,
Or
nice. And what's it made of?
it's made of, mahogany or nice material. I don't have any particular preference, but
Well,
one or the other.
I also asked this question: if a publisher was to release your autobiography off the top of your head, what would the title be? Well, there's your title, a brilliant title. But the follow-up question is, they want to scent the glue in the binding of your book. What smell?
Ah, uh, what smell? Of roses.
Love it. Tell me something good you never had and you never want.
Um, perfect happiness.
Love it. If you were in a vat of vomit up to your neck and someone threw a bag of shit at your face, what would you do?
Try my hardest to escape this horrible predicament. Get out of the vat, or
That's good. You sound like one guy said, I wouldn't be in a situation like that.
Well, I just assumed it as a given, or
Right. Okay. What's the cultural shift you see developing today that inspires you?
I think the cultural shift that really started basically with the late '60s is a form of inclusion, and of the inclusion of the hitherto excluded and the weak, or the yeah the powerless. And I think
Yeah.
on the whole, this is a very, very important democratizing process, with some problems with it, of course. But on the
Yeah.
whole, I am, you know, optimistic about the inclusion of the inclusiveness of human history.
Yeah. It's really beautiful, Andy. I agree with you, man. Inclusion, it's so important. We're all human beings. But I will throw out this one. I didn't want to, but I have to because we want to include everybody, I guess. If Trump gets thrown in jail, cannot run for president, writes a book and says, I'm sorry, I did wrong, would you forgive him?
No,
Yeah.
no, no, he jeopardized and continues to jeopardize the very existence of this republic,
Yeah.
and to a degree that is astounding to me. And so I would not forgive him.
Yeah. Few more and we're out of here, Andy. It's really, truly been fun and enlightening. I hope we can hang out live. But I got to ask you before we end, we got about 4 more questions. Did you go see the Dead at the the
Yes,
Sphere?
at
At
the
the
Sphere,
Sphere?
unbelievable. You have to go.
Because the sound system was great, or because everything?
Because of everything. I mean, Jerry, you got to go. I cannot You can't see it on. I mean, YouTube just it's
I got a sense, but does your neck get sore looking up, or you had good seats?
I had okay seats. My neck got sore a little bit if you're looking up, but the whole thing is the sound is just
Yeah,
indescribable. I can't.
that's
I've
what
never.
hardcore said. Hardcores told me that it's the best sound system in the world.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. They're 100, whatever it is, 120,000 microphones in the
Yeah,
walls or some crazy.
yeah.
It's incredible. Absolutely
Good.
incredible.
Good. I'm glad you told me that. Okay. What's a question that remains unresolved for you?
Why anti-Semitism persists and, in fact, is growing, even in our society.
Yeah. It's like back to that kid being raised Buddhist. Did he learn how to not hate, or did he realize that culturally we're taught to hate? I mean, where did anti-Semitism come from?
That's a long, long, long,
Yeah.
long, long answer.
But
Um,
is it a failing of human beings? Is it that they learn?
I really start to think that absolutely,
Yeah,
on some level, it's a form of innate hatred that is just relentless. And basically, the way I see things is that right after the Holocaust, for about 50 years, anti-Semitism in the West or in advanced industrial democracies of Northern Europe and the US and Canada and so on was really sort of off the table in terms of accepted discourse. And this is coming to an end. And basically, it's now getting back to the norm. The norm was for centuries that anti Semitism was just part of the fabric, it's part of life. And I actually had the amazing good fortune of living most of my life in this bubble of sort of post Holocaust abeyance of anti-Semitism, at least as a acceptable form of discourse, and that this is coming to an end. And again, I don't think this will, in and of itself, mean the destruction of the Jews and so on, but it really is a form of acceptance that was part of life all the way until 1945.
yeah. You're really articulate and concise, Andy. I appreciate you as a communicator and teacher. You've taught me a lot today. So, how has being an educator shaped your behavior?
I well, I think what it really taught me was that um, my actions have to have a purpose for growth for others. It's a form of it's like being a good coach, okay? And I think it taught me how to get players, how to get, I think it's a good analogy, how to get the best out of players.
Yeah,
And that is something again that took time, but I think and gives me an immense amount of pleasure.
yeah,
And in a weird way, that back to what I said before, that what really worries me a little bit about retiring is that I will not be coaching,
yeah.
and I will miss that. I think the students felt that, and yeah, yeah.
That's good, Andy, because it evoked. I think the best thing, I worked for Zappa for 10 years, and the best thing I've ever heard about Frank Zappa was he knew how to get things out of people that they didn't even know was in them.
Yes.
And
Yes.
that's what great coaches did. They know how to get out of this, you know, how to get out of Pistol Pete more than just what he was, or whoever, or Willie Mays,
Yes.
how to get that out of them.
Yes. No, no, I totally agree. I can see
Yeah.
that. And
Yeah.
that's very important to me.
But dude, just make TikToks or do a podcast and keep going. That's all. You can
I
you
don't,
well,
I
you're a dog rescue. That's another way. You have other ways to do this, you know.
that's true too. But TikTok, I'm just not cutting edge in terms of all this technology stuff. But
Hey, you put a book out, that's a lot better than TikTok. Okay, two more. Here's Thornton Wilder, 1928. Art is confession. Art is the secret told. But art is not only the desire to tell one's secret, it's the desire to tell it and hide it at the same time. You've laid your cards on the table for over 90 minutes. I'm not insinuating you haven't already answered this. What's it really all about for you?
back to how we started.
Yeah,
Um, a form of contentment, of happiness, above all, of good vibes with dear friends.
that is great. Good vibes with good friends. It's almost like you answer the last question. What gives you the most optimism?
Exactly what I just
Good
what
vibes with good friends. Yeah.
good vibes with dear friends, or
Yeah.
good vibes with dear friends, and also what I answered before, that I think on the whole, even though what I just said about anti-Semitism does not fill us with great hope, but I still think that on the whole, the trend since the late 60s, of this inclusion of
Yeah.
including formerly excluded, of whatever form, is, I think, something immensely good and democratizing, and ultimately very fortuitous,
Yeah.
and something to be happy about.
So beautiful. What a time, Andy. It's really been a treat because the first question is, what's the best thing for a human being? And Wilhelm Reich said the best thing for a human being is another human being. The last question is, what gives you the most optimism? That's what they asked Groucho Marx at the end of his life. And he said, other people. Sure been fun spending this time with another person, especially because it was you, Andy. Thank you so much.
Well, Jerry, thank you for having me. This was an amazing experience. I must say, I just had no idea and it's brilliant. I just loved it. I hope I passed to follow up with John Lennon at the top of Savile Row, the on the Beatles, the Apple studio, said, I hope, on behalf of the band, myself, I hope we pass the audition. Well, I hope I passed the audition.
You passed it well. Well, let's talk of the dead for a second, if you got a minute.
Yes,
Who,
yes.
who was the first Jerry sub? When Jerry died, who was the first Jerry sub? Do you remember?
Was it Warren? No, it wasn't Warren Haynes.
No,
Uh, Not Warren Haynes. Not Trey Anastasio.
it was
Uh,
Jimmy Herring.
Jimmy Herring. You're right.
It's amazing. He was great. And then who's your favorite Jerry sub?
Oh, no question. It's John Mayer.
Really? Wow.
Oh yeah. Oh no, John Mayer is very serious.
Yeah.
He's precisely not a sub. That's the point. He is
Oh, really? I see what you're saying.
he is a
Yeah.
voice of his own. I mean, he's a really, really accomplished, phenomenal musician, and just a brilliant, brilliant guitarist, and I just love him. I very much so.
Very cool. Okay, Andy, I'm going to hit the end broadcast button now, but I hope this never ends and we can keep talking forever and ever.
I hope so. Whenever you want me to, for whatever, call me. Let's do it.
Thank you, Andy.
Bye bye, Jerry.
Bye. Love you.